Okay, so you're headed to Bolivia. What part of Bolivia?
La Paz. Think. So
I've been to La Paz before. Okay, tell me.
have. Well, I'll be in
Yeah.
Argentina. So when I leave here, I'm going to Argentina. I'm gonna meet my mom for a week in Argentina, and then my mom's birthday is the 24th of May, and on her birthday, she's going to witness her youngest son run a 75K ultra marathon on the 24th. So I'll be doing that in San Juan, which is near Mendoza, Argentina. So week in Buenos Aires, run the ultra, and then I'll be heading to Bolivia to meet up my good friend Nico, who doesn't seem like you remember Nico, but
I do remember Nico. Yeah. He's tall. He started a solar company out there, didn't he?
yes, killing it, killing it.
I don't know very well how what that's been like for him, but I always liked Nico. So that's awesome. What a cool trip.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited.
And you're doing a 75-mile race?
Not 75 miles, 75K. So I believe the translation on that is like 45 miles.
Okay.
That was on the goals list for this year, was to complete my second ultra marathon when continuing to up the pace. Last year I did a 50K in Puerto Vallarta, and I didn't take it serious enough. I didn't take the training serious enough, and I was looking
Mm,
down on myself in the race because it took me 12 hours to finish. And I was like one of the last 100 people to finish out of maybe 1,500 to start. Maybe not that bad, but like the last like 300 to finish out of this many people. I was like, man, I'm finishing with the elders and the abuelitas. I gotta I gotta step up my game for the 75K. So I have the same time goal. I want to finish this in 12 hours, and I'm definitely a lot more prepared. I didn't just do CrossFit and run a
yeah.
couple like half marathons before. I've been actually following a regimen for this one.
Okay. So you're training. I used to do some long distance running. So the most I ran was like 17, 18 miles. But geez, like 45 miles, stuff like that. It's definitely different. So I can imagine for me, the training I would do is I would do, some really, really fast, some shorter, some longer, build those in and then build up to where I wanted to go. Is that kind of how this training works, or how is it different?
Yeah, that's actually quite similar. So you have building blocks. So each week is a building block, and then I like to put into the building blocks. So let's say I started this like end of December, the building up. So I'd start with building up to my long run being on Saturdays. So I do like an 18 mile. And then once I built up by adding like 4 miles every week, then I'd reduce back. I'd come back down to like 8 miles. And then
Yeah.
after that 8 miles, I'd jump it up again. So tomorrow will be my last long training run on this split, which is tomorrow. I'm essentially running a marathon,
Yeah.
26 miles tomorrow. And throughout the week, I implement strength training as well. So I'm still doing CrossFit, still doing a lot of like gymnastic stuff because I just enjoy doing it. And then my running is quite simple. So Tuesdays, I usually run for about an hour, which usually breaks down to between 5 to 6 miles. And then Wednesdays, I do speed work, which is really fun. And anybody listening, and even for you, it's like speed work is something all of us should be doing. So with speed work, you just warm up like a light mile to mile and a half. And then I'll do 5 splits at like a pretty hard pace at 400 meters. So between like, I call it my 5K pace. So what I would ideally want to run a 5K at, which is usually around like 730 per mile for me. So I'm pushing that, maybe a little bit faster than a 5K pace. So I'm pushing that for 400 meters where your heart rate is getting pretty darn high. And then after you do those 5 splits, you do 3 200-meter splits at an all out sprint. So literally as fast as you can go.
200 meters. What's that in like yards? I'm an American here. I haven't been in how far is a 200-meter
Half
sprint?
a track.
Half a track.
So a track.
So it's way more than like 100 yards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're sprinting. That's a long sprint.
It's yeah, it's a pretty long sprint. It's a pretty long sprint.
And you came off of some pretty gnarly injuries, like a knee injury. And I remember when you injured your knee, it was skiing. right? At least that's what I remember. But I remember when you tore your ACL. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I tore my ACL, MCL, PCL back
Wow.
in 2000, I want to say 22,
Mhm.
2022. Um, yeah, I believe it was 2022. And this is when I got into running as well. So my cousin was running a marathon and we had signed up for a marathon together in New England. And coincidentally enough, I ran my first race. So I ran a trail run in Southern California where I did my first half marathon. And then I flew to Jackson Hill, Wyoming. Funny enough, I didn't even shower after this half marathon. I had to get to the airport. So I'm smelling like, like not good. And I'm hopping
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the plane and I get to meet Steve Ducey in Jackson Hill, Wyoming. Dean Sharabi was there as well. And
Yep.
we had a good group of us. And then my last day, I tried to 360 a jump in the park that was probably like a 50, 60-foot jump. And I overshot it and I just came down and my knee
Yep.
just blew up.
And that was right after your first half marathon.
Yeah.
Did you doubt whether or not you wanted to pick up running and stuff after that? Or do you feel like you knew you were going to do it again?
It's a good question. I feel like I knew I would get back to it because right away, like right when I tore it, I still had a feeling of like, I didn't know what happened. So I was like, oh, I wonder if I can still make this marathon, was my first thought. Because I was very excited for, it was like a new goal that I was going for, and I didn't want to let my cousin down. And the marathon was coming up in April, and I did this in I think January.
Mm.
And so that was my first thought. And the lady was like, the doctor at Jackson Hill, Wyoming, she must be dealing with this a lot because she was just straight to the point with me, which I appreciated. I was like, I have a marathon coming up in April. Am I going to be able to make that? She's like, honey, you're not going to be able to do a lot for about a year.
Wow.
And I was at that moment kind of like a little heartbroken, but I think the way I approach things in life is just like, it is what it is. What's next? Like, how can I get through this?
Mm.
So that was kind of
Mm.
my focus there. I think I definitely knew I'd get back into running despite what all the doctors said. Like, hey, you probably shouldn't get back into running. You probably shouldn't get back into fitness. Um, I knew I'd get back into it. And I actually came back to my fitness and my running life with more of like wow, we're in a rental agreement with our bodies here. Like we have a rental agreement and I'm only going to be this young and this able for X many years. And I was like during knee surgery, I was kind of drinking a lot.
Mm.
I was facing a lot of demons in that point. I think the universe, God, whatever others have their belief in, the universe really put me in that scenario for a reason. And I learned a lot throughout it. And one of the big things is like, wow, you really haven't been treating your body as you should. And
Mm.
when I finally was healthy again after knee surgery, I made a point where I said to myself and a few others that I'm going to get in the best shape I've ever been in my life. Because I know what it's like now to not be able to walk for quite a few weeks, quite a few months. Like I was down for a good 6 months. Um, and that was extremely painful mentally, of course, physically, but more so mentally, of just sitting with thyself and not being able to do anything, not be able to get dopamine from fitness. So I'd be searching it from other areas. And it was very painful. So at that moment, I just made that decision and uh, used a lot of my mind and meditation to really heal my knee quicker. I think I healed my knee a lot faster than most. I was squatting 225 like 3 months after surgery, which felt kind of badass.
Dang, that is crazy. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that kind of, if I didn't have that experience, I don't know if I'd be doing all this stuff now, like really taking CrossFit seriously, running these
Mm.
ultra marathons. And it's interesting how my love and my focus and me being really effective in these areas of my life has really just translated into other areas and me taking other things more serious as well. I'm sure you can maybe kind of add into that with your long journey with fitness as well.
Yeah. I have realized more and more as time goes on that we really are physical creatures. And that seems obvious, but what I mean is if you don't use your body, if you can't feel yourself physically, if you don't know uh how your heart's feeling in any given moment, like literally, like are you elevated? Are you super relaxed? Are you just kind of coasting? Are you getting nervous just from how your body's responding to things? Um, you can feel that better when you're more active. You take care of your body. You know what it feels like to be a little off, what it feels like to be really on, to be physically dialed. And it helps you get more emotionally dialed as well, I would say. There's this meme that you've probably seen where it's a really sad, you've got the Chad guy. I wish I could show it. Maybe I will. The Chad guy, and then kind of like the caveman guy. And the caveman guy says to the Chad guy, like, me sad. He says, me sad. And then the Chad guy gives him like a weight, like a dumbbell basically. And he says, lift heavy circle, make sad go away. And I've seen that meme and I was like, I mean, literally, that's pretty much how it works. Like, there's obviously more in life than just lifting heavy circles and staying fit. But once you do that, a lot of other things, not everything, but a lot of other things become easier to do, or they become more natural because you're connected to what tethers you to the earth, which is your body, right? And I like how you said it. You have a rental agreement or a lease on your body and your life. And when I hear about injuries, I don't know quite the, I guess, pain of having to lay down and sit down for like 4 or 5 months, you said, or like 2, 3 months. That's just crazy because you really would be sitting with yourself, kind of like being, we as humans fear being with ourselves because sometimes it feels like that's the only thing that's there. Sometimes things happen to us in life or happen around us, and we feel like, how could life be this way? Like, this is so unfair. This is so difficult. This is great. Like, we put labels on everything. And um, when it comes down to it, the conversation you're having with yourself is always what's constant.
Mm.
And I think I've realized, for me personally, the story that I'm telling myself in my head about what's happening in my life uh, has been on autopilot for a long time. And so I'm coming to get to know that better and to how to control it and not control it, but understand myself. And being physical is a fundamental step to that. If you have a pyramid, when I say being physical, taking care of your physical health, maybe there's 2 or 3 in that bottom one, but your body and how you take care of your mind and your body is definitely one of those.
Mm. But and excuse me, I just had a question on that, Marshall.
Sure.
The autopilot, like the story of your past being on autopilot. Can you kind of elaborate that for me? And also, with the physicality being one thing, how also do you kind of maybe realize that you're having past patterns that are being put on autopilot?
Yeah, good question. I would say that one of the biggest indicators that I know that I'm functioning off of some programming that I'm unaware of, right? Subconscious, whatever it might be. I know that I'm in that zone when I purposefully do things that one side of me feels like is helping me and the other side of me is harming me. So to get a little more specific on that, I mean, there's this idea of I do what I don't want to do and I don't do what I want to do. In other words, your actions and your will, what you want to do and your actions, they aren't the same thing. And so if I'm in a place where I feel the need and the pull to like do something or be something or say something, um, and I feel miserable doing it, I I know there's something going on there. Like, I need to pay attention to, why am I intentionally sabotaging myself?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we all do that. It's impossible to escape. It's part of the human condition, I feel. Um, and I think life is really not about trying to control those things and wish things were different, but try to understand what is. When you understand what is, you can better align yourself with the future, and you can better come to terms with the past, and how I would answer that question. I know I kind of went elsewhere, but you can feel it. And being on autopilot is about having things that you believe influence what you're doing without you knowing it.
Mm.
So becoming aware of those, it's awareness. Awareness is key. Yeah. And kind of going off of that topic, there's a quote from you. I don't know if you penned this quote, but I thought it was interesting and it kind of applies here. You said, intuition is more powerful than logic. Your gut knows. Trust it before the noise drowns it. And what would you say there? Like, where does logic have a place? What is your gut? What is intuition?
Yeah, this is and I appreciate you bringing that up. This is a really beautiful topic for me because I think there's a couple different types of people in life, and there's certain types of people that really trust and live with intuition. And then there's more of like the logic side brain type of people that are more in line with logic. And based off my experience, I believe that there's this thing that I've been really diving with lately, and it's this philosophy of God is in the pause. And what that kind of means is sometimes you need to take a step back, almost like the Jocko Willink, take a step back and see like what type of feelings and intuitions come up. Because usually if you're just going right with logic right away, you could be missing out on some deeper internal knowledge that's trying to speak with you. I hope that makes sense there. And when I really start to focus on intuition for me, and intuition is a very spiritual, it's in line with spiritual law as well. And for example, I had I have intuitional feelings that come up, and for example, I could say an intuitional feeling is like, wow, I keep thinking of Marshall. Okay, that's a reason for me to connect with Marshall. The way logic would talk me out of that is, yeah, but I have no reason to call Marshall right now. We're not in business anymore together. So why would I call Marshall? So there's the logic that's coming in and talking out of an intuitional feeling. Now, this is just an example, but logic tends to come in and do that to you. But if I went with intuition and I called Marshall, oh, hey, Ethan, what's going on? How are you? And we just caught up. We just had a nice conversation. Where are you living nowadays, Ethan, by the way? Oh, I'm in Colombia. I'm in Medellin, Colombia. Oh, wow. I'm meeting a friend tonight that lives in Medellin, Colombia. I'd love to connect you guys. This same experience happened to me recently. And I haven't met up with this person, but I know that there's some type of energetic field that is trying to bring us towards our goals, dreams, and desires. And when we tap into that field and we connect with our intuition, it's literally speaking to us. But what happens is our logic tends to try and come in and talk us out of it. And this is back to what we were talking about before, which is past programs, past behaviors that are installed in us, which is, no, I've learned from my past that that doesn't make me money. So I'm not going to make that phone call or do that thing because it doesn't make me money right now. But your intuition's like, no, just do it. Do it anyway. And once you start to really listen and follow and be guided by intuition, at least in my experience in life, really beautiful things start to happen. Now, not everything works. Sometimes your intuition could put you in a pickle.
Wow, totally.
It could put you in a big pickle. But I do believe that pickle is there for a reason. And you can either take it head on and just understand that, okay, this is a little bit challenging, use the knee surgery as an example. This is a little bit challenging, but I'm going to get through this with a positive mindset. I'm going to get out of this and be the absolute best post-knee surgery guy ever on earth, because that's my response. I'm responsible to the situation. So if your intuition puts you in a pickle and you don't have responsibility to come out of that and the best, and the universe is going to give you another intuitional response and probably give you the same challenge again in a different way.
Yes, yes.
Does that kind of make sense there?
I've very much related to all of that. I think just there's something I want to ask you about that. But first, let me share an experience. In the door-to-door space, it's a very interesting industry, right? You have very interesting people in door-to-door. And I still do it. It's not my primary focus. I think it's useful for all kinds of businesses. And I have coached and worked with probably like 180 to 200 people. Well, more than that, actually. Geez. If we're talking like even groups and teams and speaking and things like that, probably like 350 people or more on door-to-door and sales, like direct sales. And one thing that I realized working really closely with some people over periods of weeks and months is that doing something intentionally difficult that everybody knows, like, man, knocking doors is tough, but everybody knows it's tough. You can just decide to do it anyways. And what I realized over time is people would hit a ceiling, I'll call it. And that ceiling is there. Like, I'm afraid of wasting people's time. I'm afraid I don't have anything valuable enough to ask somebody for their time, or I don't believe enough in anything that I'm doing in life to really push myself for it, right? You can expose all these things about you. A lot of things do that. But I would tell people, and I realized this about myself. I'll say about myself. I realized that I kept hitting the same ceilings, right, in different areas, whether this was thoughts I had about myself, beliefs I had about the world, effort I was willing to put in, difficult conversations I was willing to have or had to start having because I put them off, right?
Yeah.
You're going to hit these barriers, and you can decide to take it on, face the barrier, or try to overcome it, even if you fail over and over. And then you're just going to get to another one later on. But you can get stuck under the same barriers for the rest of your life just by deciding not to take it on, deciding not to be responsible to a situation or a circumstance or a responsibility that is going to show up for the rest of your life. Like, if you're going to have to, like, at some point learn how to take care of your health, start to do it now.
Yeah.
I don't care where you're at. I don't care what conditions you have. Like, everybody's different, yes, but you have to learn how to take care of yourself, your health. Take care of yourself. And if you can do that, like, you can bust through that barrier, it'll come up later on, but you can face it, right? And so I loved what you said about how you're going to hit it's the same idea, right? You're going to hit barriers, and following your intuition is what's going to get you past those barriers. Following your gut and following that. Sometimes it's a physical feeling, sometimes it's a mental feeling, and you just like, you know what? I'm going to do it anyways. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's not to say you apply that to things that are on the legal spectrum. I would not encourage that. But what I mean, you get what I'm saying. And something you described, I agree with what you said. I connected with it. And I forgot kind of what I was going to ask you, but that's okay. I have another quote from you, and I think this will open minds a bit. So it says, living unapologetically in your truth may cause exterior turmoil, but not living unapologetically in your truth will cause inner turmoil. So you said, and pay attention, I think you were very deliberate in this, where you say, living unapologetically in your truth may cause exterior turmoil. Not always. Mm-hmm. Not living unapologetically in your truth will cause inner turmoil.
Yep.
Tell me more about this idea.
Yes. And I was very deliberate with the words there because uh, oftentimes when you are living unapologetically in your truth, um, there's always going to be naysayers, but they might not come up in the forefront. So that's why I said may. But a lot of times it's going to happen. But when you
Sure.
are going against your truth and you're doing things that um, society or you're going after the Lamborghini, but you've never actually sat down with yourself and thought about, do I even want a Lamborghini? And so you're going after someone else's dream and
Mm,
you're chasing money, but it's not in alignment with what you want. So therefore you will always have inner turmoil. And
mm,
throughout my journey, I feel like I can almost spot someone who has inner turmoil right now. And it usually comes down to a few things. They're overexpressing on the exterior. So they're trying to be very flashy with things on the exterior. Usually talking way too much, not so comfortable with listening and being in the pause, which is a few signs of inner turmoil, is because they're consistently trying to sell that they're all right. They're all right. And if you're in that place right now and maybe you're like, damn, you know what? That is me. It's okay. You just have
yeah.
to really, you have to sit down with yourself and you have to create a set of values and truths and principles that you can live by and make sure that you're living in alignment with those values, principles, and truths. And I speak of this because I went through it. When when I was younger, I moved to California. I was 21 years old and I wanted the I wanted the millions and millions of dollars. I thought my life, Marshall, was going to be working at a finance job, coming out of work in a three-piece suit and sipping martinis with blue cheese olives in them and talking about all the cash we made that day. That's what I thought success meant when I was younger. And then California was a really beautiful experience for me because I started meeting a lot of people that thought a little bit differently. And if you want better results in your life and you want a better life, you got to ask better questions. And these
Mm,
people started to get me to ask better questions to myself. And what do you want? What do you want? And that question there really helped me get in alignment with my truth. And I faced a lot of false personalities. Even in the beginning of my solar career, I faced a lot of false personalities and I had some serious inner turmoil. And that inner turmoil led to me being a bad romantic partner with someone I had dedicated myself to. Um, Bad romantic partner. I believe I was at times a not the best business partner, and my relationship with thyself, which is the most important, was not the best. And that's why all these other things were not the best as well, because my relationship with thyself was not the best. Because I wasn't living in alignment with my truth, and that inner turmoil was really starting to come on the forefront. And sometimes it takes, and I hope that it doesn't need to be this for many people, but sometimes it takes as what they call hitting ground zero or hitting rock bottom, actually, I think is a more
mhm.
popular word, where people hit their rock bottom in their life. And that's when they finally start to do the inner work and finally start to maybe have a little bit of belief. But why wait? Why wait till rock bottom? It doesn't need to be that. So start to figure out what it is that you really want and develop a set of principles, truths, and values that you can start living towards and take the steps. I had someone, because we do this in my mastermind, actually. In the beginning, when we go through the spiritual laws of success, the first class that we do is we talk about how we enter the field. And a few ways to enter the field of pure potentiality, the field of infinite possibilities, is the few things that you can do is meditate twice daily, once in the evening and once at night, practicing getting into nature. So being in commune with nature, whether that's you live in beautiful Connecticut and you go walk in your backyard and you go explore some nature, or you go by the seashore and just sitting in stillness. And the other thing is you practice non-judgment. Today, I will judge nothing that occurs. So we introduce this. And then on that same call, we develop a set of values, principles, and guidelines that we want to live our life by. It's like, okay, I want to be a man of integrity. Well, how would a man of integrity live? How does he show up? A man of humility. Okay, what is in alignment with a man with humility? A man who's productive, but not only productive, a man that's also extremely effective. Okay, how does that man go about his day? So we develop these principles. And I had a girl ask, well, if I don't feel like I'm this yet, do I still put it in my principle book? I'm like, yes, that's the point. Like that's where the click is right there. Because you start living towards these values and principles. And I kind of went
So
a bit over, but
no, are you kidding me? So you start living towards principles, towards values that you want to embody. Maybe you don't all the time or the way that you have the potential to right now, but you decide to believe that they're possible for yourself. And instead of something that you are not, instead of associating, oh, I am not this yet, I am not this, it's saying, oh, I can't wait to be that, or I am that. I think that's where maybe we start to feel that imposter syndrome where you say something that you're not or that you don't believe you are.
yeah.
Right? I am successful. Oh, I'm not successful. I have this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. But I am successful. And you feel like you have to. I'm just kind of thinking if I went through what you described there, these are the things that would be coming up for me is those beliefs,
Yeah.
right? And those are the things that are driving how I believe about success.
Can I add
And
something to that real quick?
yeah.
Before you go into that next point. So, thought is nothing without energy and belief attached to it. So, the three forces that control your emotional state are belief, physiology, and then words, language. So, by the combination of those three, which the third, the belief, is extremely important. So, if you're sitting there and you're saying, "Okay, I'm a millionaire," but you're constantly thinking about the debt that you have. Well, you're not sending out the right energetic frequency to the field, so you're only going to continue to attract more lack. So if you do that with values as well, okay, I'm a man of integrity, humility, courage, productivity, and effectiveness, but you're constantly thinking like, no, I'm not actually that person. Well, that's the first step is you have to start living towards that so you can confirm the belief. And that will help the field. Once you can confirm the belief, and it all comes down to like little mini habits throughout the day. Like, for example, okay, I'm going to show up on time for this call with Marshall today. That's just what a man of integrity would do. But maybe a past version of me would try and handle all these things that I should maybe have thought better before the call. And then I'm like, oh crap, I got a call with Marshall and I show up 7 minutes late. I don't know about you, but I've showed up late to a call before. I do not like that feeling of looking
No.
absolute
Yeah.
dummy. So it's the little things throughout the day that we can implement. It's holding the door for someone, saying hello to someone. If you're speaking with a significant or someone that you're interested in, not I want to get into your pants. No, I want to learn about you. And because that's just more aligned with my values and my principles, is being more focused on that, on the human being in front of me, not the physical object that I'm seeing.
There's this idea of truth. I was listening to you and Andrew Zambetti. You guys were speaking about truth at the very beginning of your discussion, which I can put a link to the video here, by the way, so people can see it. But I've always been skeptical of the word truth, and here's why. And let me ask you this: do you believe that truth is the same for everybody?
I think truths are like bumper stickers. It's like you can either take it as truth or not. But just because I have a truth doesn't mean you need to have a truth. The same truth.
Interesting. So would you say that truth is always individual, or are there universal truths?
That's a really good point. I think we all see the world in a different way. And I believe that there are some universal truths. Like if I were to punch you in the face, you'd probably be pissed off. So I think that's a truth.
Interesting. Interesting. Could I ask you about that?
Please.
So when I think of truth, that example wouldn't come to my mind, but I think it's interesting you bring that up because I think you're right. I mean, we could potentially conceive of a universe where there's some circumstance where I ask you to punch me in my face and I'm fine with it, right? But like, that's not what you're referring to. We all know that. You're referring to you just come in, you clock me on the jaw. I'm probably not going to be thanking you. I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be all of these things, right? That's true. I'd say everybody could agree with that. But when I think of truth, I'm almost thinking of principles instead of, because that's like physics, right? Well, sorry about that. That's more like physics truth. Like
Yeah.
you cause somebody pain, they will they feel threatened, they will respond a certain way. Boom. So it's like very physics related. It's literally
Like
science,
gravity
right?
as well. You could,
Yeah, gravity. I mean, all kinds of things like that. So when we talk about truth, I think of principles and ideals and values, and we have shared values, right? I think we could come up with values that we share. We may find some things that we don't share, but the values that we do share are going to be quite plentiful. We might think of them in different ways, but just because I can see some truth through thinking about God in a Christian way, you could also see the same truth by thinking about God in a um, uh, from a Islam way. Who knows, right? We could reach similar ideals, but we get there different ways. Does that make sense?
yeah.
So I see how we get there in different ways, but I also see that there are some big truths that everybody in theory could or should share as humans. I would imagine. If truth is not the same for everybody, or if truth is the same for everybody, right? Some kind of truth. How can you have a different truth? Wouldn't that throw off the energy, right? Like help me understand that if I'm coming from it from a very like skeptical standpoint.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
A little bit. I'm gonna go with where my mind's at. We can continue to elaborate on this point because I think this is a really beautiful topic of discussion. I think we're sold truths at any second throughout the day. So, for instance, if I pick up my phone right now and I go on social media, I look at it as I'm being sold someone else's truth. So I can either take it as a yes or I can take it as a no, or I can take it as not sure yet. So everyone's trying to sell their truths nowadays, which is this is the way I believe that you should work in business. This is what I believe about religion. And I've learned throughout my journey that I've learned to almost have to not be a blind in agreement. I don't know if that's going to make sense, but I don't want to be blind in agreement where even someone that I respect, like I respect you a lot, Marshall. I've known you for a while, but if you were to give me some wild truth that you believe is a truth about the earth being flat, someone actually talked to me about this recently, and you gave me some great points. I wouldn't interrupt you and try and convince you that I believe the world is round. I would listen to you, but you probably wouldn't sell me. You probably wouldn't sell me on this truth, but I would listen to you because I respect you. I think and if I'm going off topic, it's okay. You can.
No, I want to hear what you have to say. Yeah, let's keep chatting.
If I'm going to be speaking of, if you're going to share with me a truth that means a lot to you, I'll listen. And I think where we get caught up is we're trying to like battle truths where it's just like, oh man, hey, that's your truth. Just because you're sharing with it doesn't mean I need to accept it as true. And also the big point is I don't need to try and convince you because we're different beings with different experiences throughout life. Like for example, when I think of religion, I'm not really like the most, I'm very spiritual, but I'm not very really focused on a certain religion. I take little pieces from all of them. And maybe someone could see that as like I'm the devil because of that.
Probably, yeah.
But I don't really
Who
care.
who cares?
Yeah, I don't really care because I've lived in Thailand with monks and I've studied Buddhism. I've also loved Bible quotes from the Bible. I've made a point that I want to study the Quran as well because I believe that there's probably a lot of things that I could find useful to bring into my experience. So where I'm kind of getting with this is we're all on this life path that we call, and we all have a certain reason, I believe, why we're here. And we're utilizing truth to get us to the end. So what is going to work for you in your life and what is going to add value to your life? What is going to help you have more enjoyment, be a better fellow person to those around you? Because if I'm being sold a truth of like, hey, cocaine and alcohol is absolutely so fun. We should do this every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's awesome. It's the best thing ever. We're going to have the best time ever. We're going to have cheap sex. It's going to be great, Marshall. If I'm sold that truth, which a lot of people are,
Mhm.
that's going to lead to nihilism. That's going to lead to a challenging existence. So we have to be wary of truths because people are very persuasive as well. And I went to the extreme with that example, but that could be the same thing where I could say, this business is the best. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get into this business and we're going to call it BT2 Capital.
Okay. Yeah, let's call it BT.
And this is what it's going to be. And we're going to collect all this money from these people. And I'm like, wow, that sounds great. We're going to make a ton of money. But this is the thing is we might screw over some people. Oh, I don't know if I get down with that. I don't know if that aligns with my values and my truths of how things will work. Because then that's tapping into the field of karmic debts. And I believe karmic debts are a real thing. That is a truth to me in my life. So by me staying true to my truths, it goes against what this person's trying to get me to believe and intertwine with this business venture that could bring a lot of money in, which could be nice, but could create some karmic responsibilities and karmic debts.
Tell me about karmic responsibility and karmic debt. I think we all hear like the word karma. Um, just kind of understand it. A very elementary way of understanding it might be karma is like you get what you deserve,
Mm.
that kind of idea, right? But what is karma and karmic debt? Because it sounds like it very much influences maybe how you might build values. You want to have values that will be a positive impact on karma. I mean, tell me about what that would look like for you.
Yeah, so everything in the universe, every action has a reaction. And I'll try and break this down very simple for the listener as well. So every action has a reaction in the world, in the universe. You could also call karma the law of cause and effect, if you will. So knowing that, and this also doesn't need to be a truth to someone. I believe this is a truth in spiritual law, but this might not need to be a truth to someone else. But test it out, try it out. If I were to give a compliment, an endearing compliment, usually what's going to happen is more endearing compliments will come back to me. If I want to make money, well, the best way to make money is to learn how to help other people get money because it's a karmic responsibility. If I were to, um, back to me punching you in the face earlier, if I were to inflict harm on you, I believe that harm would be inflicted back to me through the way that the universe works in a certain energetic way. And it might not come in the same form as me getting punched in the face by someone else, but I believe harm in some way would come back to me. If I make it a point to be charitable, I believe that charity will come back to me. An old Jewish tradition is to I'm forgetting the word right now, but it's it basically means to give, thrive, strive or something along those lines. Maybe the word will come to me in a little bit.
Sure.
But an old Jewish tradition is they would give 10% of their income. And they do that because they know that they're stepping into this field. yes, it's great to give and to serve, but a lot of them are doing it because they know when I give, I'm going to receive as well. It's consistent
Mm.
being in that field because the universe operates in dynamic exchange. It does. You get something back for what you give. So if you want to give negatively, what do you think you're going to get back? If you give lovingly and positively, you will receive back lovingly and positively. And it's also another important aspect of if you ever have someone who's like a hoarder or even with their money is very keeps it in like it doesn't like to keep it in constant exchange. And it's important to keep your money in circulation so more can come in and more can go out. They say in sales, if you want to be if you want to have good, you got to learn how to be a good buyer as well. You got to learn
Yeah, that's a great point.
and dynamic exchange. And I'll share one more story on this point. There was back to the hoarding. So there's a story of a woman, and this was a while ago. This was in the book, and this book that I'll share right now goes a lot into this spiritual kind of way of thinking that I'm talking about right now. It's
Okay.
called The Game of Life and How to Win It by Florence Scovel Shinn. This book was printed in 1925, and these laws are still so truthful today. So, The Game of Life and How to Win It by Florence Scovel Shinn. And in this book, she's talking of a story of a woman who didn't do Thanksgiving dinner for her family because money was tight. And the Thanksgiving dinner would have cost $34 back then in the 20s. So $34 for this big Thanksgiving dinner. Well, that night, someone broke into her house and stole exactly $34 from her. So, um, though tapping a little bit into the field of karma could have some maybe effects with that, but it's also back to the law of cause and effect and keeping things in dynamic exchange as well, which kind of can loop that into that as well.
I see. So let me ask you about that. So you kind of you went about kind of giving an example there of maybe how karmic debt could work. How have you seen karmic debt or karma in your life? Maybe with an experience you're willing to share. Like, how did it show up?
Yeah. Well, let me think for an example. I think one thing I could think about is if um, I was, let's say I was untruthful to a past romantic partner. I have a really hard time lying too. So just be me, but
Yeah, yeah.
untruthful to a past romantic partner and I would inflict pain on them. Usually what would happen is that pain would come back to me almost double or triple
Hmm.
in a similar fashion. Um, let's say um, I maybe sold a solar deal and um, I actually have a pretty good example. So I sold a solar deal, and this was in my earlier days, and I had mentors that would just sell everything, just sell everything. So I sold a solar deal that probably wasn't the best fit for this family, and I knew it too. I knew it. And my commission was like $4,200. Well, circa a couple months down the line, something unexpected came up, which was very similar to the same amount that solar deal brought me in commission for.
Hmm. Okay, interesting. Both of your examples had kind of a connection to finances there. It sounds like because sometimes when I think about the world and being in it, status is money, money is power in some ways. When you die, you don't take any of that with you. There's the quote of like, I mean, point is when you die, you aren't taking your bank account with you.
Yeah.
There's different ways to say that. And I wonder if the kind of like an obsession with money I feel we have as humans because it's kind of the only thing that necessitates survival in some areas, but was created by man. The money did not exist when all we needed to do was eat, sleep, not die, have some relationships, social relationships. But now you can do all of those things, and most of the time people aren't even capable of living in the woods by themselves. So you're just in misery in the modern age because of money and how money influences the world. But money also brings incredible things. It makes it possible for people who have the best of intentions or best of capabilities to deploy a resource that can be used universally to bring about results. So you've got both of these ends with money. Like you have ways that it makes reality worse, and you have ways that it makes reality better. And I feel that that's how everything is. Like there's two sides to any coin. Two sides to any coin. And you had mentioned earlier this idea of being sold somebody else's dream or being sold on somebody else's truth, right? And not really finding your own, or not really connecting with your own dream and your own vision. I don't remember where I heard this. It's probably from multiple places, but the idea was the only way that you can get your dream to become a reality, like if you have a big dream, if you've got a big goal, I want to bring clean water to half the planet by 2045, things like that, right? Other people's dreams and vision have to also fit into yours for you to be able to really have a cohesive team or company or nonprofit or army or whatever, your religion, anything, right?
Yeah.
You've got to have other people's dreams have to be able to fit into it. So I think in some circumstances, you need to be able to sell your dream to others and show them that their maximum dream fits in it. But it's when I am in resistance to somebody else's like dream, like I'm like, okay, they can fit into mine, they can fit into my company, my thing, but this thing about them that they like just really want to dig in on, or something they talk about a lot, like it's not going to fit in my dream. So I have to snuff that out so that they don't leave my dream and go do theirs. Because if they go and leave mine and do theirs, then I'm going to lose. And that's where like mentorship and leadership, building companies, things like that, makes people worse. Is if you cannot, yes, you have to be able to sell people. It's not sell people. You have to be able to unite people with a vision that everybody can feel confident going all in on if you're going to do something big. But the second somebody genuinely, uniquely in life needs to do something else, or has a different ideal, or needs to do their company or whatever it is, I think that it's foolish. If you want to win, it's foolish to try to keep other people from winning and learning things themselves. And just to kind of go, I put this idea up on an Instagram post a while ago. Maybe I could tag it or share it again. But I had realized that my best leadership was when I wasn't trying to get anybody to do what I wanted them to do. I was trying to get people who wanted to do what I want to do and then work alongside those people, you know? And when people don't align, you have all kinds of pressures, all kinds of pressures. If you're running a company and you have a big dream and it's important to you, and you fit inside this big dream of somebody else, maybe call it a pyramid, right? Unintentionally, but call it that. And their dream is big. You can believe in it. You can be a part of it. But sometimes you feel like there's something here that just doesn't fit, right? And that's where the power dynamic of this person has a lot of money, this person has a lot of influence, this person has been a good influence on my life, or this or that or the other thing, you start to justify, kind of getting back to what you were saying, logic versus intuition. I want to go full circle here. You can start to justify to yourself that you shouldn't go on your path. You shouldn't take your hero's journey because somebody else has already done it for you. And you can attach to that. If you do that, that's when I think long term you'll feel very empty. You'll feel very like you cheated yourself. You know, you'll feel like you didn't do what you really wanted to do. I had texted this fear over to Andrew after you guys had your discussion. I want to know because I know we've said a lot here, but I'm sure you have some things you can chime in on. I've realized that one of my biggest fears is that I won't do what I want to do with my life because I was trying to be somebody else for something else. I can't imagine coming to the end of my life and being like, wow, like, sure, maybe I did some amazing things in other people's eyes, but deep down, my intuition, like my spirit, it's like, dude, you didn't get it. You missed it.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
mm.
I think that's one of my biggest fears is that I'll get to my end of my life and I will feel like I didn't do what I wanted to do with it.
Wow.
Because I was afraid, right? Because I was afraid of what other people would think or whatever it might be. And I think that I think we all have that, but that's a fear that I've recently come to terms with in my own life. I still have that fear. Doesn't mean I can't start to work with it and grow off of it and change it. The first step is the recognition, right? So I'm working on a lot of different beliefs like that. And I'm grateful to do it. Tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I call those the twin thieves, the fear of judgment and the fear of failure.
Yeah.
And it's they're thieves because they take our ideal life from us, and there should be no reason for that. Like, you should be truly living your life path and what you're meant to do here, and that might not bring in the same amount of income right now that you're receiving, but when you commit to that, I believe that you're going to feel better going throughout your days. Work is not going to feel like work, and you're going to be doing what you're uniquely meant to do because you're following something that you're good at, something that you enjoy doing, and something that can bring service to others. You combine those three things. Wow. Wow. I always said I'd rather sell fruit shakes on a beach in Thailand than work a 9 to 5. You know, I believe the two greatest addictions in the world is heroin and then a salary. Because people get so addicted to this bi-weekly paycheck, and they buy all these things that now it's just like, oh, I got to keep this and I got to work for the man because I need to afford my things. And it keeps you trapped, and you can't actually go and try and live your ideal life. And the thing is, you might fail, but that's okay. You're going to fail forward. A couple things that came up on my mind when you were talking. So there's a guy I really like. His name is Naval Ravikant. Have you heard of this man?
I'm stoked about Naval. I really like listening to Naval.
I
Tell me about it.
really enjoy listening to Naval. And one thing that he does, and it's along the lines of why I created Dream State, where I'm hoping when people come in and tap into the Dream State community, that their goal is through practicing spiritual law and having these conversations and being in the mastermind. I want everyone in the group to create their own thing. I want everyone to have their own business, to create their own mastermind, to have their own thing that's theirs, that's uniquely theirs. It doesn't need to make them money, but I believe we should all be doing something that is in accordance to our life path. I had a man ask me recently, he's like, hey, Ethan, I see what you're doing with the Dream State. It's awesome. This was in Colombia, really amazing little Colombian. Didn't have the best English, but his name is Santiago. And funny enough, I'm going to get into a story about The Alchemist in a second, which the main character's name from The Alchemist was Santiago. So this is really becoming full circle. But Santiago was like, Ethan, I want to do what you're doing. What should I do? And I was like, what do you love to do? So anyone who's listening, what do you love to do? He's like, I love football. So he loves soccer. I was like, okay. Well, would you want to play more of that? He's like, yeah, I've been really wanting to, but I'm so busy, right? The excuses come up, as we were talking about before, the logic, the logic. But intuitionally, you really want to get back and play football because that's your soul expression. So I was like, well, this is what you can do. You can get a group of people, maybe start a Facebook group and say, soccer nights on Wednesdays, Medellin, 8 to 10 p.m. Come and play and have a community. And we'll also have a group chat where we can talk about what we're doing in business. and we can help each other grow our businesses. So you're hitting two birds, one stone there. You're creating a community, and then you're also maybe getting people out of the streets or whatever and coming into the soccer field, and then also throwing business ideas at each other. So it's like a really beautiful energetic exchange that you're doing. And one thing that Naval said, back to Naval, is in his company, when he hires people, you might have heard this with the Chris Williamson podcast. When he hires people in his company, he tells them, he says, hey, my goal is for you to learn things here. So you go ahead and start your own company. That's his goal. He doesn't want people to stay in his business or in his thing and be a slave under him, because he wants to see people grow as well. Us as leaders, we need to understand that when we bring on a mentee, they're going to have an evolution phase. And if they don't have an evolution phase, then we are bad leaders. This is where there's so many bad leaders out there, because they have all these mentees that have been with them forever, but they're at this plateau and they're never breaking through it because their leader is actually keeping them at that plateau.
Hmm.
A good part of being a good leader is learning when to let go. And if you're a good leader, you're constantly evolving, you're constantly growing. There's a constant abundance of new people, new opportunities, new things coming in. Because a bad leader gets satisfied with, okay, I'm going to keep, and I've been here. I've been this bad leader. I'm really trying to hold on and grip these people and keep them as setters in our business, right? And keep them making my life easier. But we need to let go, because it keeps the evolution going. And as I'll kind of finish this point with The Alchemist, the connection there. So in the book, The Alchemist, Back to Life Path, the story goes, a man, his name is Santiago, and he's giving an intuitional feeling. And in the dream, he sees a treasure in Egypt. So he has a feeling that he needs to go see this treasure in Egypt. Now, once he commits to finding this treasure in Egypt, his intuition speaks to him. And he goes through these crazy experiences, and he calls them omens in the book. And the omens are essentially an intuitional feeling, God, the universe speaking to him. And things happen, challenges happen. And he gets thrown off his life path to find this treasure. Once he's thrown off the life path, he stops seeing the omens. He stops hearing them because he's not on his life path. But when he gets back on the life path, he starts to feel and see the omens again. And he has a king that speaks to him, and he meets a beautiful woman. And the woman, and this could be a good example. The woman, he's like, I love you so much, Fatma. It's her name. I actually named my Tesla after this character. My Tesla's name is Fatma. But he's like, Fatma, I want to stay here and be a man of the desert with you. I've become a very important part in this beautiful village. And she's like, Santiago, you need to continue on your life path. I will always be here waiting for you. And he talks to the alchemist. And he's like, I really want to stay here with Fatma, to the alchemist. And the alchemist says, well, what's going to happen is you'll stay here with Fatma. Things will be good for about 2 years. You're the king of this village. You're the seer of all. But what's going to happen is, because you're not following your life path, you're going to stop seeing the omens. So therefore, you're not going to receive the accolades you're receiving now, because you're able to see, because you're so connected to divine spirit. And Fatma will start to see that you're not being the same, because internally, this is where that internal pressure that we talked about earlier comes up. Internally, you're going to feel like Fatma held you back from achieving your life path, life dream. And Fatma is a good example for many other things. Fatma could be a 9-to-5 job. Fatma could be an example for many things that are holding us back from actually taking the steps on our life path. Because when we're little kids, right, between the age of like 4 to 9 years old, we know, like we go so deep into one thing that we love, and it lights us up as little kids. But then society kicks in, and it's like, yeah, but you need to go to school for this because it's going to make you a good member of society and you're going to learn. But like internally, what do you really want to do? What do you really want to do? And I think once we start to listen to these omens, and we start to walk towards our life path. And you just got to know that it might not come in the form of a business idea in the beginning. but, you know, follow your creative ability and tap into that. Like I love working with people, and I love seeing other people grow. I love spiritual law. I love the law of attraction. I love mindfulness. I love meditation. These things bring a lot of peace, joy in my life. And I love being on platforms like this. And I love speaking to groups of people. I love traveling with people. When I'm doing those things, I feel like my soul is through expression. When I'm running my Dream State Mastermind, people that have been a part of it say it. They're like, Ethan, you just get into these flows where it's like God is speaking out of you. And those are a very creative flows that I get into because I feel like my soul is expression when I'm doing this. So I'm fortunate enough that I've connected to my dharma. It's a Sanskrit word. It means life path, life purpose. And we all have a unique ability, but we need to take the steps to work towards that, to find it. And if you study spiritual literature and you study the spiritual laws of success, you'll know that the universe, through a lot of things we've talked about today, will reward you. You will be rewarded in a beautifully abundant way, but it's not going to happen overnight. It won't happen overnight. And the thing that is not through your soul expression would usually bring you some immediate income. Like I could go out right now and I could go sell something and it could put $5,000 in my bank account. Or I could utilize my soul expression and I might not get $5,000 right away. But if I continue to work on this and then the universe sees that I'm taking this seriously, then it's going to give me the people, the places, the situations, and the thoughts and the opportunities in front of me. And then I just need to keep walking the path. And once you keep walking the path, the universe will keep delivering. And the alchemist's terminology, the omens. So pay attention to the omens and just keep walking the path.
And by walking the path, there's always going to be like a potential other path. At least that's, it sounds like you can go into a different path. You're not on your life path, but you're still on a path, right?
Yeah.
How do you distinguish when you're getting off the life path? You said in the story, which I have not read, by the way,
Cool.
I need to, but in the story you were saying, well, you're not on the life path when the omens aren't showing up. What is that? Maybe an example from you, like how have you known you've been off your life path and you need to make an adjustment?
Still learning this one, brother. I'm still learning this one. Uh, I believe in the past, like when I was kind of coming to the end of my solar journey, because I was putting a lot of effort into it, it kind of just became obvious. Like things just weren't clicking like they used to. My
Hmm.
love and desire for it, I wasn't getting like the intuitional, like feelings that I used to get. I wasn't having the drive. I didn't have any desire to grow leaders in the business. So it was kind of very clear for me that it was time to kind of move forward from that and work towards something else. But I actually get a lot of business ideas thrown at me all the time. And my mind is like, oh, that sounds awesome. That sounds so cool. Like, let's do it. But I've really been learning a lot in my life lately on to not say yes to everything
Mm.
and learning that sometimes I just need to say no. Um, but I really believe, back to your question, that there is, and this might take practice through what we talked about by tapping into the field of pure potentiality. When you practice silence and meditation, and you can kind of calm the inner dialogue, and in that pause is when you'll be more intuitionally connected. But I start to receive really like clear downloads of even people in my life that I've been kind of thinning the herd, to use a pretty universal example of people in my life lately. And it's
Mm.
because I've been receiving kind of like intuitional feelings of, hey, this person isn't going to be fit for this next stage of your life. And it's important to set a clear boundary with this person.
Mm.
And I've kind of been doing that, and it's been a very challenging thing. It's been very hard to do that because a lot of these people I genuinely care about. And it's hard for me to set these boundaries and kind of say, like, hey, I don't have room for you in my life anymore.
Mm. Mm.
but it's coming from an intuitional feeling. And what I've learned, and I'm learning this a lot lately, and I'd love for us to jam back in 5 years on a similar conversation and, and see what we've come through. But as I've learned, when I set these boundaries, someone I shared, 'cause this was this recent one I had to make was very challenging for me. So I was seeking advice, and I was speaking to a man over lunch in Medellin the other day, and I was telling him the situation. He's like, I believe that we're on these vessels, and these vessels at certain times of our life only have limited energetic space. And sometimes you need to free up some energetic space to take on new space. So your intuition speaks to you where it's time to get rid of some of these friends from high school that are wanting you to go to McKinley's pub every Friday or Saturday. Maybe speaking to someone who's listening. It's maybe time to say goodbye to these friends for now. And maybe you don't need to say goodbye, but maybe a see you later. So you can open up some space for some new opportunities. Because if you and I are sitting at a cafe and someone comes up to us smelling like whiskey and they want to pitch us an idea, you and I are probably not going to take that person serious, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But if maybe they had put their shit together and they looked clean, eyes were clear, and they came up to us, and if they weren't smelling like whiskey, they'd probably deliver their message a little bit clearer. You and I would probably be open to speaking with them and maybe curious about bringing them into our circle if we thought that there could be we could all help each other.
Mm.
But there's there's like there's a releasing that needs to happen, I believe, sometimes.
Mm. Not a non-attachment, you could say.
Yeah.
The idea of not having to attach to something always being the same way. It's interesting.
Mm.
It is difficult to end relationships, right? Business relationships, romantic relationships, friend relationships. It's not easy to do that. It challenges your own sense of self on a very high level. And I would say that I probably have had more self-caused pain in my life from ignoring the intuition to change a relationship or to know that something wasn't a good move. I've probably caused myself a lot more tough times with that problem than many others. And it's just a human problem, right? So again, we come to these ceilings, kind of going to what we were talking about with ceilings. You're going to hit these points where you get challenged and you think you're the loneliest person in the world and this is the biggest problem you've ever gone through, or you're going to hit those points and you can choose to break through them and believe in the future, or you can choose to attach to the past and never break through that ceiling. But you're always going to come to the same one. And I think eventually you can not really hit ceilings anymore. I mean, you're going to hit things in your life that are totally unexpected. You can't plan for, that feel unfair, that are difficult. But it's part of your life path. Coming to terms, how would you come to terms with difficult things in your life path, right? How would you come to terms with mistakes and barriers and things where it feels like I can't get past this? There's no point. It makes you want to give up. Those kinds of moments. I think if you just accept that they're there and that it's part of the journey, they become stepping stones instead of obstacles. But it doesn't feel like that until you've actually stepped over it. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
What do you think about that concept?
Mm. Yeah. I think you get better with dealing with it. And also, you brought up a word, self-inflicted too, where if it's kind of like a self-inflicted thing. And I'd reckon a lot of what happens to us is self-inflicted. Even something that absolutely does not feel self-inflicted, it usually somehow was self-inflicted. It's oh, how did this happen to me? Of course, it was somehow you attracted that to come to you. So I believe a lot of what happens to us is self-inflicted. And you made a really good point, which is kind of just acceptance. And if you can become just a Jedi at accepting things, I think that's a really beautiful place to be at, because it goes against the law of detachment, of being able to just detach from situations and outcomes. Um, I'll give you an example. When I got out of the solar world, um, my income started to drop, but my spending habits didn't. I was kind of just used to living how I was, and I had to accept that, of like, okay, wow, like we're in a new phase right now. And if you really want to take this new venture seriously, you're going to have to change some things. So I had to accept that. And then I had to accept being in some rough situations. And then my egotistical side of my brain was like, oh, you're just turned 30 years old and you're dealing with these type of problems financially, right? It's like you did all this, you made all this money, and the ego comes in. It's just like, well, this is where we're at, pal. So this is what it is. You sitting here and thinking about the past and thinking about what if, there's really no point to do that. And you're actually just creating some serious inner turmoil that doesn't need to happen. Seneca has a really beautiful quote, which is, we often suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. And
Mm.
I believe, like, if you can actually understand that and dissect that, what this old philosopher from eons ago had stated, that still lives as a truth today, at least it does for me, back to speaking of truths, because I know that I've suffered more in imagination, and usually things aren't as bad, right? If you have this, and this comes from experience as well. Like if maybe you self-inflicted something and you're nervous of what's going to happen next. Okay, well, it's on the way, but just accept it as is. And it really is never as bad as you think it is. And
Mm.
the world has a really beautiful way of just kind of getting things to work out. I actually, part of my journaling exercise that I do daily, the first thing like the third thing I write down is, everything always works out for me and brings me closer and closer to my goals, dreams, and desires. So I write that little incantation down daily. And that incantation is really important for me in my life, because I have the proof that everything usually does, it always works out for me. Even the bad, even when I'm in the valley of despair, um, even when I'm in these, like I'm going through the dark night of the soul,
Mm.
things pretty much had always worked out for me. So now I believe it as a truth, because I have it as a past. Like, even when things get really hard, and it tends to always make me a better person and a more calm and still person when I really will go through some challenging things. So yeah, I think to kind of just wrap it up, it's just like accepting, just being a Jedi at accepting things as they are. Trying not to judge things. Just like, today I will judge nothing that occurs. Things happen as they are. And this really starts to help life as well. Have you ever listened to the Your Wish is Your Command seminar?
Uh, Parts of it.
There was this experience, and this is a really good understanding of acceptance. There was an experience, and I recommend everyone that's listening to start practicing this. There was an experience of a man. He got a flat tire. Instead of being like, oh, why me? His first thought was, how exciting. I wonder what this means. I wonder what opportunity this is going to bring to me. Maybe the tow truck driver is going to be really cool, and he's going to connect me to a goal, dream, and desire of mine. Maybe I just avoided a big crash down the road.
Mm.
So I think it's really unique if we can try and go at our situations with a thought process like that. And it's easier said than done. I get it, right? It's like, oh, Ethan, like, this crazy thing just happened to me. You want me to think like that? At least give it a try. Because what's the contrary? You sit in self-pity and you sit there and think about how shitty your life is now going to be. Or you can take the optimistic route, because if all I can control is my thoughts and my response, I'm going to choose the positive.
Mm.
But it takes practice. because your
Sure.
mind through programming is conditioned to go to the negatives.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's just through experience in life and also familiarity. Like, if, for example, most people are more inclined to connect over a negative experience than a positive experience. For example, if I'm like networking or something, and it depends on your environment, but most environments, people are usually just like, oh, this weather today, God, we just can't catch a break. And they'll say that because they have an experience from their past that more people will be able to relate with a negative experience than if they were to say, man, this rain today is awesome. I love
Mm.
this rain. Not as many people are going to be able to relate to that. So they're conditioned to, you might have one awesome person that would probably be the only person you'd want to connect with in that environment anyway. They'd be like, hell yeah, bro. And you got high five over that, right? Which I'm sure you've done that. I've done that. Just be
Yeah.
overly optimistic about something that should be optimistic, and someone else just gets so hyped with you, and it's just the best.
Yeah.
Ever. But most people tend to just, because of familiarity, it's easier to relate over a negative because more people will be in agreement with them. And we all want to feel like people are agreeing with us.
Yeah. Being in conflict is difficult, inherently, right?
Yeah.
Being in conflict with other people and with situations. I think avoiding conflict is kind of like it's a band-aid on a deep cut, right? Deep cut is the conflict that you need to work on. And then just avoiding it for as long as you can, put a band-aid on it. You think it's like, whew, it's gone for now, but it's always looming. And that takes up, speaking of energetic space, um, holding on to things that you need to handle, not handling things that are fundamental, that are like in the back of your mind, takes up tons of energetic space. Really doesn't allow you to follow your intuition. For me, I think that's been one of my things that I'm working on the most right now, which is looking at the things that I'm avoiding, and just doing them, right? Doing them even though it's uncomfortable, and it brings conflict, and maybe not everybody will like me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we want to be liked. We want people to agree with us, just like you said.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating experience there. But when you take on what you don't want to, you're right. Things kind of work out. I've just made sure to distinguish that from doing things that I hate, because there's something I need from it. Doing something I hate, showing up somewhere that I don't want to be, showing up to that bar in McKinley's every weekend because I don't want people to feel, bad about me, or not like me, or judge me. So I show up there and then I just feel miserable about it. But I keep doing it so I feel like I need to,
Yeah.
right? Those types of experiences, all I'm saying is you got to contrast the two.
Mm.
You got to face difficult stuff. Um, and you've got to be able to let go of your fear. I mean, that's really it. That's really it. Do hard things, let go of fear. And then the hard things will be things that come naturally to you. And it'll look like you're just surfing through life. Whereas before you were drowning, getting like knocked around and pummeled, right? You get on that surfboard and
Mm.
you cruise through. Not that everything's easy, but you got to keep your balance. There's stress there. There's focus. You gotta stick with it. But you're surfing through life. You're not getting pummeled anymore.
Mm.
That's that feeling I feel like of alignment when you talk about being on your life path. It's not that it's just cruising, but you're just so dang good at it, and it's so meant to be that feels like a joyride. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like when the challenges come up, you just have like these Jedi instincts to go through the challenges because it's in line with your life path. But when there is that inner turmoil and challenges come up, it's like, what's the point anyway? And it's a lot harder to get through the challenges when you're not having that like inner subconscious push that's going in the right direction with you.
Sure. And that really does bring us very full circle. Intuition is more powerful than logic. At the end of the day, I mean, everybody listening to this, you have a unique life path, and being on it is not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. And I know that's really, really like cliche, But sometimes cliches are cliches because they're true. And sometimes you just need to hear what the truth is. And uh, your life path is going to be the most beautiful thing you've ever experienced. And it's also going to be really difficult. So just own it. Own it, man. Surf through it. And you're going to come out the other side feeling really, really good about your decisions and what you did and how you impacted the world. So at any point, you can always communicate with Ethan and I through social media. I'll make sure his socials are connected here. And hopefully we can have another conversation and maybe go more in depth or on different topics another time in the future, Ethan. But this has been great. Thank you for your insight. Is there anything that you would leave everybody listening here before we finish up?
Yeah, we had an interesting kind of finish there. And one quote that came to my mind with, as you start to walk towards your life path, and it's, if your friends are consistently telling you that you've changed, it doesn't mean, it means that they don't know how to tell you that you're growing. And I think that's something to hold on to, because we tend to fear the judgment of our circles and of our friends. But it's gonna take that. So I just say, F the judgment, F the fear, and just show up and put one foot in front of the other, because it's so worth it. It's so worth it to actually truly live out your life path. We all have different DNAs. We're all unique. So express that uniqueness, and you'll really be able to figure out how beautiful existence is. But thank you, Marshall. Thank you for having me here.
Of course, Ethan. We'll see you next time. And adios, brother.